Okay, let's move on to charm, shall we?
Okay, sure.
Okay, was it hard to play someone who was another character on the show? Because you played Melissa Milano's character.
That whole process was kind of interesting because they just couldn't get those roles cast. And I came in for all the different roles. And for a while I was going to play this character, then that character, and then they couldn't find anybody to play the Alyssa Milano role. And they asked me to audition for that one again. So I tried that one, and boom, then it was done. And I will say it's the first time I've ever had to try to be that spot on, not just sort of where it was required that I absolutely had to get it. There's definitely an amount of pressure because fans of hers know. And, like the entire job, not just the job, but the role itself, that entire plot was based on the audience immediately understanding who we were playing and, not needing it, completely explained.
Was she on set while you were doing your taping?
She had done all of her stuff earlier in the week. So that also was a bit of a challenge because instead of her looking at anything that I had done and sort of running with that, I had to literally go from where her parts ended to where mine began.
Did you watch her during the week, though? Were you on set while she was filming to try and pick up some of her quirks and some of her movements, or did you just watch her on tape?
The performance I only watched on tape. I did meet her and interact with her a little bit, but the actual performance, I didn't get to see any of it when I was there. But they would show me, right before we went on, or where the scene picks up and things like that. So I definitely knew where I was going from. And you don't really feel the pressure until that moment when you're like, oh, I wonder if this is reading the same, I wonder if everything that I'm doing is reading. And fortunately they were really happy with it, but I will say it was a little bit nerve-wracking.
And you played, in that show you played with, is that where you played with Janice Dickinson?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And she played, okay, now I'm going to show my naivete. I remember you playing Alyssa, but what was her character? Was she the evil character? Or was she one? She wasn't one of the sisters.
Yes, she was.
Who was she? She was Paige?
She was Rose McGowan.
Oh, okay, she was Rose.
Yes. And, with her it didn't matter if she matched. There was none of that. It was just all about the celebrity factor. And we had no idea who it would be. The script just said celebrity cameo. So it wasn't until we got to set that we knew who it was. And, she has energy. Anybody who's watched, any of the reality stuff she's on or anything, she doesn't hide her personality. You know what you're getting. But it is interesting to try to work with that when there's boundaries. And, it just made for a very interesting work day.
I'm sure.
Very entertaining, but just completely, just wild. Just like trying to keep up with whatever direction she was heading in because she is such a force.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a big day.
And then you also did ER.
Yes.
You performed one of the most elaborate stunts ER has ever done.
Yep.
How much of that was you and how much of it was a stunt coordinator?
That was amazing. It was such a cool job to be part of. I loved working on ER. Everybody was amazing. It was just great. It's one of those experiences where, having nothing to do even with the show, just with working with those people, it's like creme de la creme. They were just great people, the best in terms of stunts, the best in, just in terms of everything. The producer was actually directing that particular episode, right. So, we just had the immediate feedback, and I just loved it. The stunt was, they tried to warn us. Like, everybody that auditioned, they brought us in, and they had a scale model on the desk, and they showed us what was going to be happening with it. And they said, if you have a fear of heights, please leave, don't audition. And I don't have a fear of heights.
So did they build like a 2-story set and a sound stage for you to come up?
4 stories.
They
built
gosh.
a building. And they now rent it out. Apparently they rent it out for other sets. But they built this building that was made to collapse. And it's huge. It had to pass, all the building codes and everything, because we had hundreds of people there that night working on this. It was an enormous stunt. They planned to do it twice. But it took so long to do it one time that they couldn't do it a second time. It took us almost all night to film the one stunt. They had 11 cameras rolling at the time, so fortunately we had plenty of footage,
Wow.
But I was in the harness. I fell, I would say, 15 to 20 feet. And through the railings and everything, but I actually had an amazing stunt double who did the major fall where she fell almost 50 feet all the way down to she went through multiple balcony railings and all that. She was about 5 feet off the ground when they do whatever it is they do to stop you.
So she was on a cable. She didn't go to a bag.
No, she was on a cable.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was intense. I mean, it was the most amazing thing because it wasn't just, like my stunt double. The major thing was that they had, I want to say 16, it might actually have been more stunt people than that actually fell 50 feet because it's a balcony. It was a party that included this balcony. So not just that balcony, but there's 3 balconies. And they had, the most dangerous part was not the fall, but it was getting tangled with all the people around you because there were like at least 16 people in this very small space, all of them on rigs, and making the most dangerous part of that work are the wires and getting caught in those wires. So it's one thing when it's just your wire, but when you are surrounded by people falling, you don't have much control over exactly how you fall in what directions, and especially because the way this stunt worked. They had the regular wood floors that we did all of our scenes with, and then they would pull that out, and I don't know what they're called, but it was basically like giant rubber bands that were stretched across where the floor used to be, and then they put breakaway wood on top of that. So all of the actors had to just, on their wires, get themselves out into the center, and then balance on these wires, and get into a place that was slightly stable, and then these rubber band type things were just all broken at the same time, and so they just fell 50 feet. I mean, it was like 45.
Like right in front of you, because you're the last one to fall. So you're sitting on the banister, so all these guys are in front of you, and they all fall first.
It was unreal. Like I said to the director, I'm like, okay, so I'm asking him for feedback. Like, exactly what do you want me to do? Is there any kind of particular reaction you're looking for? And he looked at me and he laughed. He goes, trust me, whatever you do,
you're gonna have that reaction.
Yeah, because he's like, you will not believe what you're about to see. I mean, everybody was just stunned. And honestly, I think the thing that stunned everybody the most was that no one was hurt. There was one girl that got scratched by the wood on her face, and that was it.
Wow.
And, I mean, I honestly think pretty much everybody was assuming that someone would get hurt that night. I mean, they did every safety precaution they could, but just when you're dealing with that many people in that small of a space, it's kind of inevitable that you might, I don't know, at least have a sprained ankle or something.
Right.
And everybody walked away, and it was such a triumph because they had never done a stunt like that.
And how long did it take you to film from beginning to end? Like how long were you there?
11 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they were there before it was dark, setting up the stunt, and it took them, I want to say, like 5 or 6 hours just to set it up. And I mean, then just running through all the rehearsals and everything else, and then the huge balcony fall with all of the stunt actors happened once, and then the rest of the night was focused on my stunt double and myself doing our part of the fall.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always wanted to ask, were you impaled by a chair on that? Because it's really hard to tell at the end when everybody's laying on the ground what exactly is coming through you.
I know. Well, as always seems to happen, a lot of the stuff got cut out, so it sort of takes away from that explanation. But when the scene first opens, when you're walking up to the stairway leading up to this balcony, there are these chairs that are out in the middle of the yard that all these people are sitting on.
Okay.
So they're kind of like lawn chairs. They're kind of like chairs you'd see in like a classroom.
Right.
And yeah, one of those chairs was flipped upside down, and the leg of one of the chairs had come through my rib cage.
Okay.
So yeah.
I've always wanted to ask you that because I'm like, I can't tell what she's impaled by.
You can tell she's impaled.
You can't really tell what it was.
It's more disgusting when you realize it's the leg of that chair. I mean, that's just icky.
Very true. Very true.